it was the left center putt from the first time I saw it. I already hit that putt in practice. I knew where the pin most likely were going to be. But I called him my caddy, and he said, well, I can't really see anything. I'm like, no, because it's left center. If you say center or left center, for me, that's left center.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Toppgolf podcast. Today, we are super excited to have an icon of the game, a true legend in the world of golf, a global ambassador, and a golfing superstar, Suzann Pettersen.
Thank you.
Suzann has an impressive record. After a successful amateur career, 5-time Norwegian national champion, Suzann turned pro in 2000 and became a member of the Ladies European Tour, and in 2003 she joined the LPGA. She has 22 professional victories to her name, 15 on the LPGA, 7 on the LET, and 1 international. 2 major championships, US Women's PGA Championship and the Evian Championships. She's represented Europe 9 times in the Solheim Cup. Suzann retired September 15, 2019, after famously holding the winning putt for Team Europe at the Solheim Cup at Gleneagles in Scotland. Prior to that event, Suzann was on maternity leave for 20 months. Wow. Never question Suzann Pettersen under pressure. How does that feel?
It feels like a long time ago.
That's a pretty impressive record.
Well, I've lived my dream for about 20 years, so it's been a long journey, a lot of ups and downs, but mostly what I can remember are the ups, a lot of great highlights. Obviously, very nice to finish on a high note last year at Gleneagles. I couldn't really have asked for more. It was kind of served right on the silver plate on the 18th, and it's just one of those moments you live and die for, and you just gotta embrace it and make the most of it.
So cool. Can you tell us about the first time you picked up a golf club?
Yeah, I was probably about 5-6 years old. I'm the youngest of 3, 2 older brothers, so I usually, whatever they did, I did, or I tried to do it even better. It was actually my dad who introduced me to the game of golf at Bogstad. And ever since I picked up the club, I thought it was the easiest thing in the world to swing the club. I have questioned that in the aftermath when I got older. But I kind of got straight into it. Obviously, I did a lot of other activities, sports, but when I was about 10, 11, golf started taking up most of my time, and it was literally golf full on from about 11. So golf has been a huge part of my life. A little bit less now, but I still feel like I've was fortunate to make it a living and make the most out of at least my dream.
So when you were 11, was that when you really feel like golf was your calling, it was your thing, you were going to go for it from then? Or
I don't know how conscious you are at 11, but apparently I was telling my mom and dad at bedside that I was going to be the world number 1. So I guess from early on the dream had already started. I don't know how realistic or have if I actually realized what I was saying, but somehow I was looking just across the border. I looked at Annika Sorenstam, who was kind of a rising star at the moment, at the time, and figured out if she can do it, I could do it. So it's always kind of good to see someone from your neck of the wood, so to say, kind of pave the mark.
Can you tell us what it was like growing up, becoming a rising star in the game in a male-dominated sport?
For me, I didn't really care because I've never really been a girl. With 2 older brothers, they've always challenged me to kind of be better and stronger. So with that mentality, I didn't pick golf because my girlfriends were playing. I picked up golf because I thought it was a great sport with a lot of great challenges. So for me, I loved hanging with the boys at the club, tried to pick up everything they did because at the time they were much better than me. So for me, it was a great environment, and I love to travel, love to learn, love to get more knowledge, and I used to be on the golf course 12 hours a day, so it was literally my life from early on.
Wow, impressive stuff, eh? Did you face any challenges being a female athlete?
I don't know if I feel like I've been faced with challenges more than the male side of being a professional golfer. I feel like we've had a pretty equal standard here in Norway, abroad, everywhere that I've traveled to play golf. I feel golf has been very receptive. I must say I played in Kuwait one time. I must say that was a little bit different. There wasn't too many female golfers around. But in most cultures, golf is a popular sport. So
cool. What advice would you give to up-and-coming junior golfers today? What would you tell them?
I mean, there's literally one way to success, and that's hard work over time. Don't expect the work to necessarily pay off tomorrow or the next day or the next week. I think whatever you choose, stick to the path, stick to the process, and if you work hard enough, it will pay off. Golf is an interesting sport. Sometimes you make changes and they kind of you can kind of see it straight away. Other times it takes time. I mean, months. It could take half a year before you kind of trust it and own it. So golf is a very technical sport. Obviously requires a lot of repetitions. That's with any technique that you work on in any sport. You need to have so many repetitions before it's automatic in your body, and so is golf. And in golf you just have 100 different types of swings and techniques that you need to learn and trust under the pressure. So
which one do you pick? Which one do you pick?
You have to manage them all, because then you travel the world, you play on different surfaces, different conditions. So there's always something to work on in the game of golf.
Cool. What has golf taught you about your life?
Well, I must say I've pretty much been more reflective in the aftermath after my career. I never used to kind of reflect back when I was active. I always looked ahead, like what could tomorrow bring. But I must say I've been very fortunate, because I feel like I lived in a bubble, being a professional golfer 24/7 for almost 20 years. I've given it every priority that's been needed, and that is a bubble, because once you kind of step out of it, that's when you kind of can step back and really look at it and say, was it that important, that one shot or that one tournament? But when you're in the moment, you live and die for it. So then it's all in, and in the aftermath, like I said, golf, I used to say golf was my life. Now I can probably say golf was a huge part of my life.
What lessons have you learned on the range that you can use in your life?
Patience. I'm actually a very impatient girl, but when it comes to golf, I was extremely patient. But I guess I knew I was working with the best people out there, and trusted their knowledge, trusted that was the right thing for me. So patience was probably one of the most important things that I learned from the range.
The range, my home, my church, my proving ground.
Your place.
Yes.
Your playing ground.
Oh yes. What made you decide to be great? Hi, it's Mark here. Sorry to interrupt the podcast, and I hope you're enjoying Suzanne. She's sharing lots of great information, but I've made something for you in mind. I've made a coaching VIP container for 6 months. It's designed for the golfer who wants to achieve greatness, who truly wants to change their golf technique and increase their swing speed by 15-20% over the winter. It's the perfect package for you, and I've got 18 spots available, and once I fill them, it's going to be closed. That's going to be my main focus point as you as the golfer. I'm going to distill my 36 years of experience to you in that package, my best knowledge, and I feel I've got something that can help you achieve your goals and your dreams in 2021. I'm offering a 20-minute phone call consultation to anybody who wants to talk about their golf, how they want to approach the winter, or whether that packet is for you. I believe it is. You can contact me at topgolf.no or on my own handle, Mark Davies Golf, on Instagram below. Looking forward to speaking to you soon.
Playing around.
Oh yes. What made you decide to be great?
I've never accepted coming in second. I hate to lose. If it's sports, playing cards, picking bluebirds in the woods, it doesn't matter. I'm a very competitive soul, and I think that's gonna stick with me for the rest of life.
Do you want to leave a legacy in the game or in the world at large?
That's a very big question, but on the LPGA we're all kind of very fortunate for the 13 founders who founded the LPGA, who kind of made it possible for us to do what we do today. And it's kind of in our legacy out there that you join the tour and then you try to leave it better than when you first joined. So, and I think you can do that in many different ways. One thing is to kind of play fantastic golf, but also be a good ambassador for the game of golf, recruiting young girls, helping communities. There's so many ways you can kind of help the game of golf, but you also help a lot more than just the game of golf. So I've been fortunate to see a lot of great places, travel the world, and made friends around the world as well. So there's a lot that comes with golf.
So cool, awesome experience, eh? What is the secret to your success? Could you pinpoint anything in particular that has made you so successful in the game?
Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I've never accepted that my best is good enough. I've always wanted to push the limits. Even winning, I could kind of sit back at the end of the day on a Sunday night thinking I could have done better. I could have won by 6, not 3. And always been very picky on myself, my own work, probably the most of any. Looking back at it, I've probably been quite hard on myself, but at the same time, I've never been hard to decrease the motivation. It's always been for me to inspire even more work. I've always said practice as hard as you can and then ease up when you play the tournaments, because then you can really see that the practice is paying off.
Watching you as a golfer on the TV, I never really saw you play. Maybe at Bugstad in a tournament. Did they have a European tour in Norway a couple of times?
A couple of times.
You know, I would describe you as a gritty, determined character. How did you develop your unwavering belief in yourself?
I don't know. You can only be one person. I've always tried to be myself. I've always heard smile more on the golf course, and I feel I've always been on the golf course to do my best, to do my job. For me, that's been looked at as probably very determined. As much as I haven't smiled, I've actually enjoyed every minute on the golf course, believe it or not. But I don't know. I think something. I think it grows on you as the years kind of goes by. The easiest thing for me towards the end of my career was I knew exactly where my game needed to be able to compete at the highest level. That made kind of the preparations, the planning a little bit easier. I was never on the search for what was needed. I kind of knew the formula, and then it was just a matter of time getting that.
What do you mean formula? Formula to the course, to the tournament?
Formula to the course, the strategies. I knew where my own game needed to be. And when it comes to golf, for me, ball striking was always very important. I always kind of determined if I was in good form or not in a good form by how I was striking it, not necessarily how many putts I hold, even though it always comes to that 1 or 2 putts that you make or don't make. So you kind of learn your character as you go, and that's one of the great things about golf. I mean, it's almost like wine, the older the better.
So cool. What is the power of working with a great golf coach?
Great communication. I've been fortunate to work with the absolute best ones in the game. On long game, short game, putting, all parts of it. And for me, it's been important to work with people that knows more than me. It's been, in my mind, it's all been about building my own library. So if I can pick your brain and you can kind of teach me something new or tell me so I understand whatever I'm doing, that's kind of creates my own library, and that creates trust, and that gives me the ability to pick whatever, make the right decision on the golf course when you're on your own. So for me, it's always been about exploring. I've been probably quite picky to work with. And I worked with Lebberer for about, 7 years. I probably called him more during the night than during the day when I was sleeping, try to figure out what to do on the range the next morning, he would pick up the phone and say, "Can we do it in the morning?" I was like, "No, I need the answers now. I've been thinking about this. What do you think?" So I mean, golf is a mental game. We all turn crazy for this, and then I've been fortunate to work with Butch. Butch Harmon I worked with more in the later part of my career. I'm a little bit more old school teacher, but at the same time, what I learned from him was lessons I've never will ever be able to read in a golf book, because he's learned most from the best guys in the world. Say Greg Norman, Tiger Woods, all these guys. So sometimes the best lessons are actually just being with people. But like I said, the communication is the key.
Do you think you could have the same success now if you started your career again without the coaches that you've used? Could you coach yourself to the success?
I probably could. I know everything that needs to be known about the game of golf, the golf swing, but I've always been curious about a second set of eyes for input, for feedback. So I would probably bring in some of them, yeah, but that's not going to be a matter of a question because it's not going to happen.
It's not?
No.
Okay. Did you achieve everything that you set out to?
Pretty much, except being ranked #1 in the world.
Looking back at your playing career, is there anything you would change?
Yes and no. I mean, when you're out there, when you're kind of right in it, you feel like at least you try to make every decision right for what you're in at the moment. When I look back, I probably could say I should probably have enjoyed the highlights even more, because in golf you probably fail more than you succeed. It's just how it is. You don't win 15 tournaments a year, so like you lose more tournaments than you win on a regular base. So when you finally do succeed, you should probably treat yourself, or at least give yourself a clap on the shoulder. For me, we usually go straight to the gym or just keep on the track that I was planned to do. So, but that was kind of what made me also. That's kind of been a huge part of how I felt like my success was coming along, and so I don't know if I would change it, but I just know that if I was given the same opportunity when I was 19 again, if I was standing as a 19-year-old thinking, what should I do? Should I go to college or should I turn pro? I would have turned pro again. So if that just turns out for me, that turned out to be the right thing.
Good decision, wasn't it?
I haven't regretted that. I have not regretted that.
You went to college, Mariell? Denver?
I went to college.
Did you regret that?
I don't know, probably not.
No?
It's hard to kind of say skip school to young kids, you know, because education is everything in the world. But at the same time, I think only your gut feel knows where your talent can take you. And sometimes it's hard to follow that gut feel. In our family, school was always the most important thing growing up. If I wasn't kind of keeping on track with the schoolwork, my dad wouldn't allow me to go play all these junior tournaments abroad and missing all the school. So that was always a requirement. So I always thought that when I was done with the high school or university was next, I always thought that was a must. But then one day at dinner he said, you know, why don't you just try go professional, and you can always go back to school. You might not even like traveling the world playing golf. Give it a couple of years and see how it goes. I never returned to that question.
Very cool.
I think that going to college was like great for me because I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do right after high school. It was sort of like if I wanted to go to US and play professional, or if I wanted to stay in Europe. So it was like nice just to like see what that was like to be in the US environment.
Awesome. You know, there's been a lot of good players go to college and come out and do well, and then there's also been a lot that sort of quit halfway through and been very successful. How skillful would you say you were as a golfer? Did you practice developing all your skills, or were you into certain shots? Or
as a professional, you always try to stay on top of the game, all aspects of it. The long game, tee to green, was always my bread and butter. Very consistent. Always hit a lot of greens. My putting was probably my weak part. When I putted half decent or better than that, I knew I was in contention. If it was not on point, I would probably be top 10s. So that was the difference in my game when I was out competing. So you can probably say my putting has been the weakest part, but at the same time I made the most important putts in part of golf history. So at the same time, am I that bad of a putter?
How productive do you think all your practice was over the years? Do you think you could have looked back and done it any different in the way, how many balls you hit, how you hit them, how you rehearse the shots? Or?
I probably got more more productive and more efficient with my time the older I got. When you're a kid, you just count hours at the club, not necessarily the hours of good practice. But I think that's a part of just growing up. Just being in the environment is very important as well, because it's playful, it's fun, and it's exciting to see the other kids, and you play games. So I think that's also important. But then as you grow older, the more serious it is. I think it's important to at least have a mapped out plan, what needs to be worked on in the different areas of the game, and dedicate the right enough of time. And what is the right enough of time? 1 week you feel like you're top of the game when it comes to driving. The next week it's straight out of the window. So it varies so much. And 1 week you have one swing thought and you feel like you can do whatever you want, and then 2 weeks later that swing thought does not work at all. So it's a very funny game, but we can't forget that we're all humans. The body feels different every day. What I learned to become fairly competitive week in, week out, year after year was I learned to be able to compete with what I had that day. I knew my B game was good enough. I didn't necessarily have to play my perfect golf to win. I knew my B game, even my C game would be enough. You just have to know how to manage that. So if one day you're standing on the range warming up and you feel, shit, nothing is working, I used to work the ball both ways. My fade was always my go-to. If nothing worked, I always knew I could hit a knockdown fade. That was always been in the fairway. I wouldn't be the longest off the tee, but I would get the job done. At the end of the day, it's not a beauty contest. It's about getting a score on the card. So it's a balance. And I also want to say, I've been competing against probably some of the best ones in the world, and very rarely do you win playing your A game. Tiger probably won with his A game the Open in 2000. But I don't think you would look back at tournaments saying, gosh, I flushed it from Thursday to Sunday, no mistakes, no errors.
Big lesson there. Big lesson for all the young kids.
Indeed.
Trying to perfect the action. Interesting. So what about building up to a tournament? How would you separate your practice? How much time on the range versus the course would you do at home and then take it out? How would you do that?
Leading up, the preparation was pretty similar week in, week out. If I had a week off, it was basic works pretty much. It's different if you know the course you're going to play in a week's time, because then you know what shots are required, you know what tee shots you're going to hit. But if it's a new golf course, you do all the basics. You get the repetitions, because during the tournament week you don't get that much time to actually work on your game. Then it's more emergency work or just warm-ups, or I used to always hit balls after the round just to cool off and just kind of get my thoughts around what I was going to do the next day. A lot of my work was actually done around the greens, getting to know the course good enough, especially the greens. So one good thing when you've been in the game for as long as I was, that I used to have all my info from year in, year out. So I always kind of had the Bible next to me, and that Bible from each course was just added more and more information from year to year. So I would say that probably 20 courses I know inside out, how the greens work, whatever. So it just comes with experience. The more rounds you play at each course.
Awesome. So did you keep notes from all your lessons with all the super coaches that you had?
Yeah, I was I was pretty nerdy that way.
Okay.
I wasn't as good writing training diaries. Even though I had plans that was kind of well written and followed, I didn't necessarily always kind of add in a system of, okay, 6 hours spent on the range, 2 hours in the gym, 4 hours on the putting green, 3 hours on the golf course. But I was very precise on my notes from each lesson, key thoughts, key swing thoughts, drills, whatever. And if I look back, I could probably write another book just with all the swing thoughts that I had during my career. And a lot of them would change from week to week. Some were kind of quite consistent. You always kind of fall back in the same pattern, but sometimes it takes different drills, different kind of different work to kind of work around it. So in my yardage book, obviously I had all the notes about the golf course, but I also had the key elements of my swing right on the under the first page. So that was always a go-to. And I think it's important when you play competitive golf, you are going to hit bad shots. Everyone are. But who hits less bad shots wins the tournament. So if you hit a bad shot, it's very nice if you can actually make the correction there and then on the golf course. You know exactly what happened, and it takes 2 rehearsals, and then you're like, got it. Need more of this or less of that. Or so that was always like my. I had a lot of trust and faith in those swing thoughts, and they helped me also stay very focused during the round.
The last shot that you hit in professional golf, probably was that the most important shot of your career?
It's always easy to say the last one's the best one, but it was definitely one of my better ones. My actually last shot that I hit, and if you don't take putting as a shot, was the little wedge into the green. I was more nervous there than on the putt because it was quite a tough pin placement, and you could easily look like an idiot if you missed your spot by half a yard or whatever. So. But again, I was trusting the process. I had a very good wedge matrix that had built up over years, and it ended up being a perfect shoulder-shoulder matrix with my 52. So the number just dropped down perfectly for me at the right moment, and that's when you just have to trust the practice. I knew exactly when it came off the club face that it was spot on. So. That's when hard work over time pays off. You never know when that moment's going to be, but always be prepared. And
what were you telling yourself over that putt?
I knew it was going in. It's just one of those putts where you're like... but had Marina Alex hold hers, I would never have had the chance to make the putt because it would have been game over. So it happens very quickly. Your mentality, you expect her to make it, and then... From when it came off her blade, I knew it was too high. And then you quickly have to kind of turn around and get into your own mindset. It was the left center putt from the first time I saw it. I already hit that putt in practice. I knew where the pin most likely were going to be. But I called him my caddy, and he said, well, I can't really see anything. I'm like, no, because it's left center. If you say center or left center, for me, that's left center. So I was just trying to stay calm, and I had David Orr, my putting coach there that week. So I had one swing thought, I was just take it straight back, because I used to drop a little bit inside on the path going back. That was the tendency. So that little thought keeps you so sharp and so on point that you kind of forget about everything else. And yeah.
Fantastic. More important stuff. When was the last time you played?
Yeah. When was it? September 2019.
Was that when it was?
Yeah.
So you got loads of mates that play the game. Did they not call you up and ask you out for a game?
They do, but I want to say golf is like any other training. If you don't do it every day, it gets quite rusty quite quickly. So the few times I have actually felt like going out to play, and then I've been questioning myself, would you actually enjoy it if you don't go at least for a couple of days to hit balls in advance? Or then I thought maybe I should actually give myself a week or two, because I don't think I would actually enjoy it if I have no idea where the ball's going to go.
Do you think you'd hit the middle?
I could probably scramble around par, but I don't think I would enjoy it.
Have you got a net in your back garden?
No, not yet.
Not yet. That's the new thing over the winter. So you haven't got one?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't
But
know.
I did have a full setup in my house in Orlando
Cool.
when I was playing.
A simulator and...
Yeah, when it was bad weather, I could always go inside and get the work done. So, I mean, I've done it all, but now I'm done, and I'm just trying to leave it like that.
What about any young kids in Norway? Did they ever contact you and ask you for advice or help, or can you coach them even? Would you coach them?
I don't know if I have the patience to be a coach, but I talk to players all the time when I meet them. Try to encourage them, try to give them some good advice. But it's not always easy to give advice, because what has worked for me doesn't necessarily work for you. But all I can say is my experience with what I've done has given me this, and there might be a lot of right things that I've done in that process. So I'm quite humble when it comes to that, because there's a million different paths to the top. You just have to find yours, believe in it, and kind of trust that that's the right thing. I mean, the path is never going to be a straight line from A to B. It's always going to be adjustments along the way. There's going to be hiccups, injuries from my point, and you just make the best of it and try to kind of get back on your main route as quickly as possible. So I mean, go out there and kind of enjoy the game. But I think it's important to be ambitious, because being ambitious is kind of, it creates some excitement in your body. It kind of gives you the everyday goals. And I think it's important to kind of check off some everyday goals, even though if you have a big dream, I mean, you got to do the work every day. Without that, you don't get anywhere. So you got to do it in the right order.
Do you ever think will be a coach in the game, or do you ever see yourself in that role?
I don't know. Obviously, I stay in touch with a lot of the girls on tour still. We can play ball back and forth, talk about stuff. Then it's actually more discussions. What do you think about this? And I would say maybe this, and she's like, yeah, but what if I try this? So I mean, I love to be involved. But more on like a friendly base.
Must be hard that have such a great career and then not play for a long time.
But I also have to say my best practice has always, a lot of the times, been with my opponents, my competitors. I used to practice a lot with the best in the game on the male side and the female side, but also on the female side. I mean, when Janit Tseng was #1, we used to practice and challenge ourselves all the time at home, when we were both home practicing leading up to tournaments. At tournaments, we used to like show off our short game, like, how do you do this? And I would show that, and she would show me something that I maybe felt like I couldn't manage as well. So those are the fun moments that kind of sticks out. And I remember I was working on this flop shot, and Carlotta Sigan, I was like, how do you do that? And how do you know exactly how far you can fly? And I'm like, it's so easy. This is something I learned from Butch, that he had learned from Greg Norman. I mean, so we get on the course, we get paired one day, and obviously get short-sided, need to get over a bunker, and I have, it's barely 3 feet to stop the ball and downhill. And I made it, and she, as soon as he came off the face, I just looked over at Carlotta, like, did you see that? It's sick. And she's like, so it kind of gets exciting, and you get those moments with each other that kind of takes the seriousness out of it, because you're just going out there to play, use your creativity, and yeah.
Awesome. What's next for you?
What's next? My book. I've tried to put it in words, my journey. I must be old, because I feel like you have to be old to write your own biography. But it's been 20 years in the circuit, in the game of golf, and I've tried to deliver as straight from my heart as possible. There's always been documentaries and more video stuff being produced in the aftermath, but it's always different when you sit there with a pen and you kind of write it down. And at the same time, when I decided I would do it, I said then I would have to be all in. It'd have to be no filter, because then it's as honest as it could be. And I think, especially when you're retired or you're not in the game anymore, it's easy to reflect back on the good and the bads. Not everything that I'm writing about brings back great memories, but I think it's important to kind of evaluate it and kind of get over it as well. So it's been kind of an interesting process. It's taken some time.
My place to go to relax and meditate is the driving range.
It's probably
and it's
the
like
gym.
my church, you know what I mean? It's where I go just to shut the world off. I mean, is that what it was for you in the years gone by? I mean, how do you find your place now after golf's gone? Do you have a place to go to switch off and relax?
I just love going out in the woods. I'm in the woods every day with our dog. That's my happy place. It used to be the first thing. I mean, as much as I travel probably 300 days a year in a suitcase, the first thing I would do when I dropped by Oslo for a few days here and there was just put on my running shoes and go out in the woods. Endless, so peaceful and quiet. And you could reflect. You can kind of breathe in the fresh air and kind of get that atmosphere, because you don't necessarily see and feel that everywhere you travel. So that still is my go-to place. Obviously now having a child, that is a different place. You kind of forget about everything else and you just live in the moment every day.
Marielle, do you want to ask any questions, or have I asked them all for you?
You've asked them all pretty much. But,
It's not like you not have anything to say.
So when we're in Norway, it's like kind of winter season all year round, or half the year around. It's really cold. So what would you suggest that juniors from like the age from like 6 to 19 should do when they have indoor season?
Well, I can remember back, because I used to live in the indoor center when you were still in school. I went to school, jumped on the first bus, went to the indoor. There used to only be one at the time. So I took the bus and I used to stay there until they closed down, and my dad picked me up. And at the time, I think I was probably 11, 12. I don't think I knew that my opponents actually could have grass under their feet 12 months out of the year, because I thought the way we have it is the way everyone has it. I never thought any wider than that. And I think it's a great opportunity to be able to work on your basics, to work on your technique. And then in every school holiday or training camp we had with the national team, you go out and you test, you see the ball fly, you can kind of see the results of what you've done inside. So I think it's a very good way of dividing working technique, because when you work on technique, if you work on positions in your golf swing, you shouldn't really care about where the ball's going, first thing. And then when you go out, you can kind of focus more on ball flight, strategy, and all these other aspects of the game. So I think it's a great, actually, opportunity to just be very determined on what you work on, and kind of build the game from there.
Because I'm thinking like a lot of kids like age under 12 is probably not working so much technique. Would you like suggest that they play more simulators?
Well, to be quite honest, I've never played a lot of simulators. My game has never suited a simulator. But I mean, I used to stand on the driving range, hitting golf balls after golf balls. And at the time, we didn't even have the technology that you have today. I mean, now you can actually hit inside, and you know exactly what the shot's producing. So that's the benefit of growing up today versus my days. So I think you can make the indoor practice a lot more efficient now with the technologies that you have available. So yeah.
Cool.
Okay, Suzanne, thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
And we're so happy you came on and shared all your knowledge and information with you, and your book and your water. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are so
Cheers.
happy to have a true icon of the game and a legend on our podcast. So we appreciate it. So
Thanks
thank you very
for having
much.
me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you again.